Good morning. So I am trying to design a job description that will maximize the number of possible applicants to the position using this 2024 Stack Overflow survey, which asks developers what technologies they enjoy using, what technologies they want to use, and what technologies they have experience in. So to start, we start with our programming languages. Every tech job needs a programming language. So we're going to pick the top three: JavaScript, SQL, and Python. I'm ignoring HTML and CSS because if you're using JavaScript, you're going to need HTML, CSS. I'm not exactly sure why JavaScript's more popular. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But so here I have the numbers in a Python kernel here. 64% times 54% times 46% means that out of 100 developers, only around 16 of them will likely have experience in these three technologies according to Stack Overflow's survey of thousands of developers. Respondents 45,000, so this is good data. The next step is that we have 16% of our respondents. We now need to pick a database. And for that, we are going to pick PostgreSQL, which is the most used database structure right now. And that brings us down to 8.5% of developers will likely have experience in Postgres as well. Moving back down further, we are an Amazon company. We use Amazon Web Services. I want to find these 8% of developers, half of them use Amazon Web Services. So if I were to interview 100 applicants for a position, only 4 of them will likely have these 5 technology stacks. The next step is we need a web framework. We're using JavaScript, but we also need to ensure that we're going to use a JavaScript framework, and the most popular one right now is Node.js at 40%, so we're going to add that in. So out of 100 developers who apply to our position, about 1 to 2 of them are going to have these 6 technologies: Node, Python, Linux, SQL, and PostgreSQL, and AWS. Finally, we're going to be using, not concerned about that. Most places doing this sort of job are going to need to have some virtualization. So Docker is used in our company, our hypothetical company, and 53% of these developers have experience with Docker. Actually, let me do that. 587. I'll only look at professional developers here. Let's make sure we have the professional for Node.js. Let me fix my numbers here. 1.6. Professional developers, if I were to interview 100 developers who use all of these technologies, I will have 1 who is a perfect fit for my position. What's crazy, even if you go down further and you start defining, whether you've used Jira before or whether you've used Windows or Linux, you're going to have to likely interview over 100 developers to have a chance of finding one developer who actually has all of the skills you are looking for. And this is the most popular stack. Let's say we go to the second most popular one. So we're going to drop JavaScript, and we're going to say we use TypeScript. 0.434. And instead of the most popular database, we're going to use MySQL. And then instead of AWS, we're going to use Azure. And then instead of React, we're going to use Node.js, but that doesn't really change much. And then we're not going to use Docker. We are going to use Kubernetes, which is its closest alternative. You're down to 1 in 1,000 by going with the second most popular option. you're already down to needing to likely interview over 1,000 if you use the second most popular skill on the survey with the closest alternatives. So the reality is that when hiring for tech, you need to recognize that even if you pick the most popular technology, again, I'm not controlling for operating system, I'm not saying whether you use Jira, I'm not doing any of those that often show up on requirements. The reality is that if you expect your developer, your hire, to use every skill that you have on your job description, if you're having more than a couple, you're probably going to have to interview hundreds of people in order to find that one needle in the proverbial haystack who has every skill that you want. So it's not realistic. Now let's reset this. And instead, we're going to pick only the top 3. We're going to say if we only want to do our JavaScript, Linux, and SQL, we have still 7.3% of candidates who are possible hires for our position. So when doing a proper hire, you want to set up no more than 3 options. 3 of the most key technologies that have the fewest close alternatives, the ones that are most central to succeeding at your position, are the ones you're going to need to specify first, are the ones that are non-negotiable. So if you're hiring a web developer position, you need to have JavaScript, you need to have Linux, you need to have SQL. And so this would be a full stack developer position. Someone who doesn't cover the back end, you still need to know SQL. Somebody who doesn't know the front end might still need to know JavaScript. So those are your must-haves. So if you do 1 divided by 0.07, this means you're going to need to interview around 14 candidates to find one perfect match. Then, once you've found your 3 must-haves, pick 3 nice-to-haves. We're going to pick AWS, Node.js, and Docker. We're down to 0.008 candidates. Only 0.8% of candidates are matching all of these 6 skills. And that's only 6. 6 well-used industry standards. Over 99% of candidates will not have all 6, realistically. Now, you need to drop one of these. I would drop AWS because if you're good at Google Cloud or Azure or self-hosting, you'll be able to use AWS. So we're going to drop this 0.52 as the least important of those 6 skills. Okay, now we're back over 1%, so we'll need to interview about 100 candidates to find our skill. The remaining 2 nice-to-haves are Node.js and Docker. If of the 2, which one is more important? And I think that Docker is probably the one to keep, so we're going to drop the 40% from Node.js and say Docker. So we're going to have those 4 skills: Linux, SQL, Python, Linux, JavaScript, SQL, and Docker. With that, you can interview about 1 divided by 0.0388. You now can interview about 25, 26 candidates, and you're likely going to get one good match, assuming they're random applicants. One decent match to the position who has these 4 skills. Now you're talking about a reasonable job search. This is why you cannot find hires. This is why you say there is nobody qualified. Because if you actually study the industry or have any experience in the industry at all, you're quickly going to realize that being able to you need to recognize that every tech stack is different. No 2 companies have the same tech stack. And so you need to learn, if you want to work in tech as a recruiter or as a manager, you need to learn that about which of these skills are transferable. And otherwise, you're never going to hire anyone because you're never going to have perfect match if you require more than 6 skills. And that being said, finding a job description that lists only 6 technologies is extremely rare. Most of them will list every technology they have, and then the recruiters think they need to match all of them. And as I've shown here from this real life data of what technologies developers actually have experience in, again, if you add these numbers up, they always sum to more than 100%. Like 51% plus 39 plus 32, you're over 100% with these 3 SQL frameworks, because most people will know multiple SQL frameworks. If you do languages, between the top 2, you have 110%, 160%, 200%. Almost every developer will know at least 2 or 3 languages. And that should be enough to get a job. That should be enough to work. But expecting the person to know every possible JavaScript framework is unrealistic, and that's why you can't make a hire. Hiring needs to change, and then they will find that they're able to find their candidate when they have more realistic expectations. So, yeah, there's some real life data on hiring in tech. Have a great day.